There's nothing to call. What are you going to do about this moment? I don't think we ask ourselves, let's be perfect. Let's survive it. Like Sue, let's hit the right note. Let's get up there and play. Because your life depends on it.
That's the easy part.
Yeah. What's the hard part?
When you're not in the limelight, when you're not on the stage,
when you're waiting for the subway on 28th Street at 12:30 at night, you are in the limelight.
Yes.
You're always in the limelight. Hers is a limelight of people who came to see a show. Yours or somebody else's is a limelight of what can happen now? What can happen next? And is it going to happen to you? Is the girl of your dreams going to walk right down the block and you didn't see it because you were tying your shoelace? Gone forever. Have to come back another lifetime. Knowing that you could drop dead any minute, how can anything replace that thought?
Yet it always does.
I wonder why. Well, why do you think?
Well, we're built for survival. That's the first thing I thought of, but it doesn't really make sense per se.
Okay.
How does that help us survive, to be asleep all the time? No, it doesn't. I don't know why our default is to be sleeping. Why the great majority of everyone can't see, doesn't want to see.
That's a good one. Don't want to see. Don't want to be reminded of that very uncomfortable truth. Did Al Gore say something like that? An uncomfortable lifetime or something? Deer is eating peacefully, something I see every day. Eating peacefully. And the smallest sound. He's looking. He didn't miss that one. He wasn't so involved in his dinner that he missed it. Because I think he's into survival. Who made that sound? What could it mean to me? What is that sound in relation to me? And you look up around. Nothing happens. You'll go back to eating. Try to think why we don't. And I go along with your idea, life is survival. I have chased an ant, a black ant. This guy will run for his life, run around things, run under the boards. He is really running for his life. And I'm trying to get him, and he's running for his life. He's very conscious that this huge thing that wears shoes is out to finish him.
When we talk about gravity, whenever something is in front of you that's close enough to touch, attainable, it seems like gravity gets in the way. And is that a primal force, nature of the universe? Yes. I don't know why. But it's very palpable, very powerful. I don't know why people are sleeping, but it has something, I think, to do with the great gravity that they don't force themselves against it or think about how they can maneuver.
What else is there to do?
Without talking about gravity, it's almost like there's a primal vibration
Mhm.
that when you're in the present moment, when you're doing it, everything is, I guess, one. It's not the best description, but is one with a universal energy. And I don't know how that incorporates into, well, I guess I do. Always feeling like you're about to die. If you're always about to die, then you want to be as close as you possibly can to that universal vibration. But I don't know why everyone's asleep.
What?
I don't know why everyone's asleep. I just know what we're up against.
One explanation is that there's a field of power encircling the world that I'm calling the spirit of gravity. The spirit of gravity lives on man's desperation, on man's unhappiness, on man's depression, on man's loss. The spirit of gravity has the power to, in a manner of speaking, hypnotize the human being so that he is not aware that he's food on the table for the spirit of gravity. And the spirit of gravity works through every aspect of their life to destroy their life as much as possible, so they can never feel power. Because when you feel power, I believe strongly that the spirit of gravity senses a mortal enemy that is saying basically, you are the spirit of gravity pulling me towards no power. I'm going to oppose you at every moment of my life. I am sworn to get you, and you are sworn to get me. And then let's keep this yin and yang going for as long as it goes. No, you will not take away my power. Goes for anybody. You will not depress me. No, you will not. You will not conquer me. Perhaps the most important thing I have to do in life is battle you. Spirit of gravity will put you to sleep, will play with you, and then wind up eating your universal power, because it must thrive. And perhaps for some, the important task is to fight off the spirit of gravity that wants to seep away your power. I'm tired, it doesn't matter, I don't know. What do you think of that idea?
I think it makes it easier to visualize.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea of being constantly present, constantly working. We don't have any choice in the matter. Gravity is always there. Whether we like it or not, we are fighting this. And to think about it that way, think about it as something that we're already doing, just makes it easier to say, put up a good fight every second of the day, because we already are. Again,
I don't think it's a matter of effort. I basically don't think it's a matter of remembering. I think it's a matter of forgetting that life, or whatever you call it, is a field of honor in which you must fight the spirit of gravity and all those you must fight forever. Never taking your eye off the idea that this is a battle. Maybe it's because some are afraid enough to remember. That bull coming out weighs maybe 1,400 pounds, I believe they weigh. A skinny Spanish matador weighs 130. And that bull is looking to kill him. Could we say that fear gives him that edge? The bull is not afraid. Either too dumb to be afraid, or it's never happened to him before. This isn't how he pays his rent. But the bull is not afraid. But the matador must be afraid, because one misstep is the end. Not looking where you are on the street will be the end. Not looking where you are crossing the street will be the end. Forgetting to bring in a paper on time may lower your cume enough to not be able to get into the college you want. What do you think, Sue?
I think that the work may actually be misnamed, because I think that's actually the most natural state of existence. And just as we walk around with tension in our bodies that we're not aware of until we're in our yoga guided meditation class, and then they say, relax the shoulders, relax the back, and then we realize, oh, I had a lot of tension in there. What we normally do is walk around with a lot of tension and fear and things that we hold inside that form a barrier between us and what's around us and the natural world and the other people and the other beings and the other entities that are in the universe. I think what's natural is to be aware of all the things that are surrounding us that way, and that that not working is actually the unnatural way of life. But just as we carry tension around with ourselves, we habitually do what is not natural. I was playing Tai Chi with a guy the other day, and at one point he said to me, you've got me, push me. And I said, I don't know which way to go. I tried to go one way and he didn't go that way. And he said, no, you got to go this way. So I went that way. And I said, why does this happen where I get you, but then I don't know which way is the line? Which way do I take you? And he said, because you have to yield first. And by yielding and not resisting and going with the force that's coming at you, he said, that's when you feel which way to go. But if you try to fight and make a barrier, then of course you won't feel which way to push the person. So I think also that the work, not only is it natural, it's also about a surrendering. Because surrendering is what's natural. Giving oneself is what's natural. feeling that one does not have barriers between oneself and the rest of the universe. And the fact that we do live in a predatory plane, I think that's evident. Every being that I can think of on this plane is either is a predator to some things and prey to other things. We can be both. Anything can be both. I think that's the nature of the conditions that are on this planet. I think a creature that lives in the jungle doesn't say, gee, I wish I could go on vacation to Hawaii and not have to think about maybe getting eaten by that snake, or, the guy who comes with the machete every Tuesday, or, that poisonous spider over there. They're not saying that to themselves. They don't have that feeling because it's natural to be looking around for the guy with the machete and the poisonous spider and the snake. And as humans, we're certainly capable of being predators as well as being prey. And I think it's natural for us to have that awareness as we navigate our way through this plane that we live on. So yes, the idea of work being hard work might not be the way of thinking about it. There's a passage from Lao Tzu. It says, the Tao of the sage is work without effort. And I love that, because when I'm working on something really hard, I feel like it's effortless. And I think probably everyone in that room has that feeling. When you're really into something and there's a part of yourself that says, gee, I'm working really hard, and then there's another part of oneself that says, yeah, this is great. So that's one of my favorite phrases. I always think about that, and I always try to strive for that. Am I working without effort?
I believe it's instinctive to work. And I find to myself I don't use the idea of work. I take the model, in part, of a gigantic corporation. A corporation, like a government, has one all-consuming primary task: to stay in business, to stay alive. No matter what a corporation has to do, it will do whatever it deems possible in order not to have to close and go bankrupt. The corporation must exist. When you turn on the light and those roaches run, they must exist. Your body depends upon your heart and your circulatory system for food. It wants to live, it wants to exist. I would not describe it as work or effort. What did I do today to keep my heart beating? Very, very important. Did I do enough exercise? Did I work on my body in the physical center? Did I work enough to try to get through this whole day, maybe be able to do it tomorrow? Maybe that's one of the reasons why we say at 2 o'clock, I'm alive. And then from somewhere comes a different chord. I want to live. Don't get in the way of that. I want to live. And believe me, for at least 30 years I said, I am alive. I want to live. Yes, I want to live, yeah. What for? I don't know what for. But I did the exercise. Sir.
This man wants to live because life is so interesting. I just really like it, and I really can't get enough of it. And I that's the motivator as far as I'm concerned. It isn't so much fear. That it used to be more fear that I would die and that I would lose that life. But I kind of resigned myself to the idea that everybody dies, and it's just kind of like, it doesn't terrify me like it did at one time. And I just feel as if I'm lucky every day because there's so many things that are funny and fun and beautiful. And even when I'm doing some heavy work, masonry work or something, there's always something in it that's challenging and worth figuring out. Just walking around, I went to a store in Chinatown yesterday, and on the way back I walked up to Little Italy and that area, and I was kind of spellbound by the different kinds of dried vegetables and fruits there were, and fishes of all different kinds of shapes that are all waiting on each other, making patterns and so on. And I felt exhilarated by the whole thing. It was as if I was suddenly very aware of everything that was going on, and breathing it in through the pores of my skin and so on. And I thought, this is really what life is to me. I'm not really afraid I'm going to die. And I don't know when, but I sure want to pack in as many things as I can do that are visually interesting and just that make my mind work and that I want to write about. And do it in a way that I'm aware of. Yesterday I was particularly sensitive to what was going on all day long. And it was certainly not just kind of mechanically going around doing routine errands or anything. I was just very aware of who I was talking to, what I was saying. I was outside myself, looking in at myself. And there was some kind of a space between, it wasn't reactions. It was almost as if I had already done the rehearsal and this was a performance. And I could see myself doing this. And everything went very smoothly. You were talking about how smoothly things go when you're in the right place. That things just feel right. And that's the way it was. People responded totally different than the previous day when I was not very conscious at all. I was just kind of aggravated and felt annoyed and as if I was being trod upon and sort of defensive all day.
What did you do to bring that change around from one day to the other?
Well, there was a certain point where I was crossing Canal Street and I had just gone through some of those markets that are on there. And I actually did say to myself that, you're really stupid because there's so much wonderful things just right around here. Why don't you just concentrate on that? Don't think about, that your overdraft checking is crashing, or you may not be able to. Will you finish up in time to get a flight for free? All these other worries and things. And just look at what's around you, and just breathe that in through your eyes and your senses, and really participate in that. And I did. It really worked, and it worked the whole day.
Will it work again tomorrow, the day after,
Yeah, it
etc.,
worked today
etc.?
too.
Mm-hmm.
It made a kind of an impression because I thought a lot about it afterwards. And I didn't think too much about it actually, because thinking doesn't really do it. I knew I had experienced something pretty wonderful, and I didn't want to chew it up with a lot of thoughts, and intellectual why this and why that. I just knew I had taken something in almost like breathed it in.
Am I getting an impression that a large percentage of what you're saying,
I shut this off.
yeah, that's for me, I passed away.
I shut this off. I'm sorry, I did, but I think I shut it off. Sorry.
The picture I got was, in a few things you said, was that like, it happens. It isn't something you bring about.
Well, it was a realization.
Mm-hmm.
It was so strong that I
Mhm.
couldn't not see it.
Okay. I'm asking, how can you do this? What was the road you took? What door did you go through? How can you manage to do this every day, tomorrow and on? Is this yours, or do we have to wait for chance to see yourself in a place where something suddenly comes to life?
It's uncommon for it to happen the way it happened that day. It'll happen maybe. There'll be certain things that'll happen throughout the day when I'm working or when I'm doing. But there'll be also a kind of a counterpoint of worry and negativity.
Can you do something to erase that downwards anti-life mindset?
When you say anti-life, it's kind of almost pro-death in a way.
Of course.
There's fear of screwing up at the end, in the final days of his life. You read these biographies of people, writers and they finish in a pool house or something.
So what I've heard a couple of times is that a few people have said, well, yesterday I had a great day, or the day before yesterday I had a great day, tomorrow was a lot. The roller coaster. Is there something that we can do, a skill, something, to make sure that we are in the money all the time? Sure.
In answer to this, but also going back to a question that was asked about why do we sleep? It seems like the question to ask really is, what is sleep giving us? Why do we go back to sleep? What do we get out of sleep? This person, sleep is really a place where we're in imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so one or a few or all of our personalities are getting to daydream about how life should be, how things should behave, how people should behave, how much money we should have, and in what ways we should spend it, and so on. So in a way, that's one place where one becomes master of the universe. where the ego is so inflated that we're in control. And what Sue was talking about before, the idea of surrender, is really coming from the awareness of we're nothing. And when we realize that we can't change anything, we must surrender to what the circumstances are. That's where we give up a lot of our suffering. But also with that, we give up the idea of being in control, which is intolerable to most or all of our personalities. So perhaps that's how we can bring about more of those times that George was talking about, where we can take things in without ruining them with our thinking.
Just occurred to me while you were talking. Thank you. People talk is when I think. We've mentioned chief feature so many times that I've really almost blurred on what chief feature is, but loosely speaking, it seems like the worst part of you is the chief feature. Is it possible to have or to create an anti-chief feature? Another part, like your chief feature is, well, whatever you do, it keeps you down, it keeps you asleep, that's what makes you unconscious. Can we latch on to something? It doesn't have to be universally looked at as good, or can we latch on to something that's going to keep us sharp all the time? I haven't thought of it before. But at least in one of the ways I'm thinking this minute is I've latched on to this feeling that I'm this little dot walking around that could get squashed at any minute. And if I close my eyes, it's going to happen to me. So I must constantly be alive. But that bull is coming at me, at least in my feature, because that's one of the things that keeps me alive. That bull is coming at me, and when he reaches here, I better not be there. Other people may have other mechanisms, other ideas that keep them there. Maybe for this moment, you stop thinking about God and you've lost your contact, whatever it may be. What can you find in yourself that is going to really force you to be there? Because I don't think we can tell ourselves too much, oh, I must be here. That doesn't sound like it'll ever do it. But I think that the matador is saying, holy smoke! Wow! He's, oh, gee, look at the horns on this guy! Forget that my wife wants a divorce. What can we find that's going to rivet us to the situation? I'm sure for everybody it can be different. Maybe when Madonna comes out to 2 million people and the lights are on, this is the world itself. She is not going to be daydreaming about yesterday or anything else. She's there, this is it, the crowd is here, the lights, the applause, the band, the music, wow! What can you or you get to snatch you into that moment?
May I? We spoke about intensity before.
Mm-hmm.
And you just mentioned Madonna
Mm-hmm.
and Matador.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of danger and the man on the wire, and well, putting oneself in a place that it demands your full presence.
You mean like crossing 7th Avenue?
Like that. Like I thought of like, oh, if what maybe you need is to walk on the street all the time, and to be like maybe like what's it called? Near-death experiences. It's like really walking a very fine line, and to have that be a part of what you daily do to keep you there. It's keep you with a gun to your head all the time. And for each one, as you said, it's a different thing.
Maybe it doesn't have to be a gun to your head for everybody, but it is for a lot of people.
Well, it's a different thing. It's like something that keeps you, that demands your alertness, that puts you in that place.
Look at you don't dare not be there.
You have to be there.
It isn't work. I must be here. It's like
you're there.
You're there, whether you want to or not.
Yes. And I just thought, like, for me, at least for now, being in a room full of people who come to practice their yoga, I happen to be the instructor, and I have to come and stand in front of them and chant in Sanskrit, is a gun to my head. I have to be there. I cannot be daydreaming. I can't be afraid either, because that'll
you gotta
get
be good.
Me stuttering. I have to be there and just do it. There's no rehearsal. I have to go in there and do it, and I do it because I have to. And thank God I have it 6 days a week now, so I only have Saturday to fall asleep.
Well, maybe we can get you.
I can get a day for Saturday too. But
you're the Madonna of the mat.
I have my day starts like this 6 days a week, and it's like it basically puts me in at least to start my day in a state of mind that it's a good start.
Yeah.
I think it really is the concept that we have heard from the chair many times, doing things as service, as opposed to for our own pleasure or enjoyment. It's again removing the ego out of the doing.
Mm-hmm. Each moment that has the possibility of doing service, that we don't do it, is gone. How many more moments are there? Even if it's 5,000, when the opportunity we miss leaves 4,999.
There is an illusion that there's some backstage which we can retreat to. That there is some place that is not the arena. Which we kind of live in that illusion that we have some place which is not work. As opposed to realizing that we are always on the stage. And finding that energy in the tension of facing death, in the tension of being on the stage. When you started tonight, you asked us to create energy. And it's in that tension of facing that, which is so much bigger than us, that we can create it, heighten everything, and live on stage.
At the beginning I mentioned power. I guess for some it's more plausible than others. There are aspects of what we're involved in that are very much how to make our daily life better. I believe very much in the idea of power, that we have the power to do many, many magical and occult things. I know that some people say, among them me, came into the work because it had the possibility of being able to walk through walls, walk on water, and disappear, live for days on water and lawn grass, whatever. Yes, great percentage of this man believes in those powers. We've read about them, the yogis that can do this and can do that. I believe it. Definitely. Does anybody here kind of populate that world from time to time, or very often, or seldom if ever, or never if ever? Do you populate that world?
Yes. When I'm aware of what sort of, to use the language of tonight, when gravity is sort of coming at you. Mm-hmm. Gravity is very devious. And, I think when I think about what it means to be asleep versus awake, sometimes it may be easier to be asleep because what you become is sort of closed off, and gravity is pushing these things to you, and they hit and fall, and you think that that's actually okay, that they're not getting into you. You're creating this blockade. Mm-hmm. But what's happening is you're becoming mired in all those things that have fallen around you, and it's making it harder to, like you said, walk down the sidewalk easily because there's so much in the way. It's like carrying a refrigerator down the sidewalk, as opposed to being a scream or letting it pass through you, let gravity come towards you, like you were saying, and acquiesce and turn and keep going. And I think when you're doing that, you're getting closer to the magic.
Have you ever tried anything like gaining a kind of control over your body or something, or seeing, or anything like that?
Yes.
What have you done?
Done the mirror exercise quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Sensing as often as possible.
In the mirror exercise, do you see many things?
Yes.
Wonderful. Could you share any of them?
I see a lot of faces.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of imagery that is sort of archaic or sort of older than me. Mm-hmm. And I'm not confused by it, which would be contrary to what I would imagine if you were to ask my non-awake self. But in the mirror, it's very natural, and it is what I expect to see, for whatever reason.
It's a very, very valuable and important piece of my work. Very, very important. We could say there are multiple things that can be said about it. Could be your last and future lives and what have you, or somebody, who knows. But whatever it is, it's certainly tremendously interesting and creates a very, very deep change.
And a rich thoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm. I think we're able to look at all that's happening in the mirror and to some degree say, I don't know. I don't understand. I'm seeing, but I can't say I really know. And then transposing that into everyday conversation, everyday exchanges. I'm seeing this, I'm hearing that, but I don't really know. I would like to know, maybe, so I think I know, but in the final analysis, I don't know. I know very, very little of the world. This is my right hand, I'll bet the farm on that. That's about the extent of it. After that, I start to go into maybe, most probably, that's what I heard. The same way that I speak of this belt of gravity, I also believe in the world of the invisible, the world of our spirit guides, what we have that in many, many ways protects us, nurtures us, enlightens us. And in that world there are also enemies too. I very strongly believe that my spirit guides are there, helping me, protecting me, exchanging energies, because energies that I possess as a human, those not in human form do not possess that energy. It's a blessing for them to receive what I have from me, as it is a blessing for me to receive what they have. So it isn't a matter of just asking, help me out. It's much different than that. A very good thinker, Mr. Stuart Wilde, he mentions that there are levels and levels of realities. I accept that idea. And it's fun sometimes. Sue and I went down on the deck, and the way the deck is built, the uprights are here and the balcony's here, a little spot. And I saw something there, and I said, "What's that?" And she said, "It looks like a little frog." Yes, there it was, and I put over a finger and I touched it, soft and alive. And moved it. Yes, it's a frog. Okay. So maybe he's hungry, maybe he's thirsty, maybe he needs to crash somewhere. Bring him up on deck and get a tray, and put water in it. Maybe he's hungry, put a leaf in there. Let's not let the cats get at him, we'll put him behind. We took care of the guy, all right. And at night I said, gee, I hope nothing happens to him. We'll see what he's like in the morning. In the morning, went out, and he was gone. Never saw him again. And it reminded me that there have been numerous creatures have come to the house and stayed for a night on deck. Birds, I've picked birds up, we've given them water when they crash into the glass of the window. A lot of small creatures have come around the house and received some nurture, and went on their way. And I thought, would it be odd that if this being had perhaps been a person in another existence, when I was a person in another existence, and maybe I did him a favor.
But you didn't kiss the frog.
I didn't kiss. Well, it was a guy frog. Watch yourself. Did I do something for this creature, this being, that comes in another life to say, thank you. I needed a rest, or thank you. I enjoyed that thought. It's a pleasant thought. Which reminds me that I very, very strongly believe that we return again and again and again and again, and that bodies are capable of destruction, disappearing, rotting. But our basic, essential self, which I put close to the idea of soul, is indestructible, immortal, and goes on into series and series of different realities. And that there is work that we must do in this reality, in this life, that we can't do in another reality and in another life. Must be done in this life. And as time passes by, there's less time to do it. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Mr. Gill.
Talk to me. Let me hear what's going on.
It's the life or death situation. Just thinking the life or death situation that you let me call my girlfriend, promise to tell her to call who you wanted to call. And that way you give me the dime. And that way you could pass on the information. Then we could both get a phone call.
No, I gotta have that done. Please, give me
It's
this.
all right.
Can I beg? I'll lick your paw. Let me have the time.
I was thinking of what keeps someone going forward, like when the matador comes out. I always remember reading about sharks. The sharks have to always keep moving forward to pump
So
water
die.
through the gills. And it's like life. Constantly be thinking, be on guard, to put energy into your life. You come to a standstill. And then you go into the imaginative world. In the reading Mark did this last week, he talked about how one's constantly getting impressions and one can't change the impressions that one gets, but one can change how they interpret the impressions. And they can put them into the imagination bucket or into the fantasy bucket, or the imagination and fantasy bucket or reality bucket. So which one is one going to choose? Is one going to perpetuate the fantasy or the reality? And it hit home this week about you never know what's going to happen. Mark planned on calling a mentor. We spoke about this. He had mentored Mark for maybe 20 years now. And this guy was taking care of his mom. His mom was 104. And Mark thought he'd call him this week and got back from Costa Rica. And he got back Sunday, and the first phone message was saying that the guy had died. And just like that. It's interesting how fast things could change. Mark in Costa Rica, to get to this one surfing spot, one had to paddle across the river. Did it in the morning, it's going back. It's just maybe 20 yards. And he had his backpack with a journal he had been keeping for 6 months. He decided to swim across and put his backpack on a surfboard and go. The next thing he knows, he's swept out into the ocean, waves. And it's just an instant. It took 5 seconds before everything changed. Backpack fell off. Mark lost the surfboard, had to yell out to another surfer to come help him. Mark swims well and everything. It's just like that. Those things, you never know what's going to happen. was just one step, and Mark couldn't touch anymore on the ground. And Mark also thought it was fascinating what Yossi was speaking about earlier about how, and other people alluded to, is that it's the nature of flowing down the block, or when one is working, that one eliminates the ideas of what is that person thinking, this person's getting in my way, this person is, I'm in a rush, and to let the work be the purpose of what is going on. And so when Mark's working, when he's at the coffee place or at work, it's the work that is the most important. It's no longer the transaction or getting what Mark is intent on getting. It's the action that Mark is going to get that. And that helps eliminate all the stuff in the periphery that isn't important anymore. And when that happens, Mark feels there's a synchronicity that's happening where he feels Mark is in touch with something else and Mark quite can't understand, whether that's self-remembering or something else. It seems that things unfold as they ought to unfold when Mark is working. And it tends to happen more when Mark is working more during the day. When Mark's doing his morning exercises, Mark's working with intent, that Mark feels more synchronicity. And when Mark's not doing those things, it happens less. So it tends to happen that way. Those are some of the things Mark is thinking about. Mark really likes the concept of life could change at any second, because it's happened many, many times.
Excuse me, I can't sit anymore. It's very good.
At almost every point in my life, call it a week, a month, a day, the general feeling is that I've arrived at a crossroad, I've arrived at an intersection, and something is changing. And it's kind of trepidatious, it's also kind of exciting. This community has altered so much in the last recent time. But I've gotten the feeling of, this is marvelous, this is really, really wonderful. Wow. We've done this? Come on. We really have done this. What started out as a kind of a vague idea a couple of seasons ago, faltering, stumbling, difficult, everything, all the obstacles, and it gradually transformed and changed. And what I see before me is something very, very magnificent, and something that I could only have had a daydream of, that has become a reality. I think my gratitude for that is eternal. At present I'm engaged in another project, and all the projects seem to have a point of, they come to a point, very much usually the same point, always having to do more or less with what's called work, which I'm going to change that word. I got to it. Years ago it used to be Gurdjieff every other sentence, and I said, no, that can't be. This idea of work can't be either. We'll see how long it takes and where it goes. That's another leg of the road. Anyway, we were giving away some boxes of VCR cassettes, tapes. And they're big and heavy and cumbersome, and I had them for 1,000 years and couldn't bear carrying these boxes. Let's get rid of them, and Sue found somebody who would take them. They're gone. While looking for that, I found another series of VCR boxes, except these boxes are films taken in my loft, which was the next building, in the years 1984 and 1985. Pamela was there, James was there, I was there. Were you there at some time?
No, I came in just after.
Mm-hmm. Well, there were some people there who are no longer with us. Some people have traveled on to something else. Two very well-known composers, still see them from time to time. And I said, I would like to see these. I haven't seen these tapes in 25 years, exactly 25 years. Put them on. Oh, good. But then after being careful and not pushing it through that, going fast forwarding, finally I found a spot. And that spot is fine. Faces are, it's a regular tape of a meeting. And I said, that's history. That's Pam's history, James's history, my history, the other people in it. The last pictures anyone will ever have of a guy called Joe Caputo at a meeting. He, very exceptional guy. He died extremely young. So all efforts now are to get these darn cassettes onto a DVD disc. And I asked questions, and I came up with a couple of answers as to how to do this. You were involved. Well, a very dear friend whom we all know works with Tarantino on the West Coast. So she got in touch with him and his associate, and that's the way that they keep their old cassettes and this. So he gave me the information, and I went out and bought the darn thing, and it's here in a box. So now we're going to take it and put it into CDs, into DVD players. And then from that, once we have that captured, then it's real and it exists, it can be worked, it can be seen. And that once we've got the disc, then we can make 100 copies of it. That's no problem. It exists, and it's history. It's Pam's history. I decided I must have altered a lot. As I can see, I altered a lot, not just physically. I'm going to study from myself. What was I doing in those days? How was I working? And I'm going to study from that. And then there's another project of Pam's writings and her communications with the invisible. And that seems to be an even bigger project. And can I tell the story of how you got to do the calligraphy?
How did I do it?
Yeah.
You want to tell it?
I'll flip you.
I
You
think
win.
I've told it. No, we did for years movement work, and my favorite thing to do was the willing exercise of willing your actions, and also willing, like moving your hand without actually moving it. You just will your mind to move your hand, so it's like about a 64th of an inch at a time. And so all different configurations of this work. And a few of us used to meet. In addition, we had our own small workshop. It was Chone and Joseph and myself. And doing the movement work, at one point I looked at my hand, and it looked like the hand of a very old person. So I said, it would be interesting to see to write something, whoever that is, the hand of, and see what they say. So all three of us came up with, the other two people had other entities that wrote. And so we started asking questions and answering them. And that was a particular set of communications. And then carrying it further, it was many of the writings, which I have boxes and boxes of, would be an oracle, like the I Ching. This was the oracle of Heraclitus. I don't know if it was the same Heraclitus from Greek history, on the edge there between Egypt and Greece. And what was said was that if you promise to do these writings, then you can have the gift of writing in this way, of that particular oracle. So I did do that, and I did it for hours and hours, maybe 15 hours a week or more. And so, and then there were other entities that spoke, and some of them I do by speaking, and some of them by writing, some of them by writing with my left hand as opposed to my right hand. And so it's a whole kind of world, and I spent a lot of time when my father had cancer for 2 years, writing about my father. I had an image that was before my mind for 2 years straight, which was of two horses, a black horse and a white horse, racing. One was death and one was life. And so that sense of energy put into my father's life. He died, but he's still but he is alive. I learned that from my father. And so these writings, as I say, are basically the oracle. And there'd be certain things that I would do, like in order to understand an idea, I would go back without realizing I was repeating an action. I would go to Maine, specifically to a certain rock, a cliff. And it turned out, I noticed this in hindsight, then when my dad was ill, that I wrote something on that spot. And it turned out, and looking back on the writings, I wrote the same thing 1 year later, at the same time, in that same place. And I would just go there specifically to do that and then come back. So there was a lot of synchronicity, and the writing is extremely telegraphic. And it's different levels. The more profound the idea, the more elaborate the writing. So it's like high art or high writing. It's similar and sometimes to Japanese brass writing, which is one continuous line with all the words in the line. So I thank Gil for bringing this to my attention, because we do things, and it's very hard to also have the vision to see oneself from the outside and feel encouraged to take this work that one does to the next level of it being useful to other people. And I find that much of what I do outside of the world of time, that I spend a lot of time stalking how to exit time, so in order to be able to accomplish the many tasks I have taken on. Because I find that they happen in this plane, and I can do quite a bit in strategy, say within 10 minutes in a different state. And I think with the writing, I feel I will be given help. I feel that help has been offered by Mark and others. And I just feel the energy of everyone, that it's that collective energy. And I was just thinking about all the writing I have. I have 12 boxes of writings. That I was saying, where do I start with this archive of myself and all that I have learned? And I think when Gil said just recently a few times about starting with just translating the automatic writings, that it gave me a starting point, because I had like about 30 different ways of approaching things. So I felt very grateful, because it is the idea that you come to the earth to do things, and you must finish what you started. So that coming toward me with force is a great gift. Thank you, Gil.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone.
There's a part that you didn't mention, I think I remember, probably you do, of just starting to write on paper and just moving your hand or whatever, and then throwing out the sheet, and you went through tons of computer paper, and finally a word
Oh
appeared.
yeah, I have those too.
Yeah.
That was like a language.
Yes.
Like whenever you say a word, you see that it says it in the language. So it's another language. So that you say it and your hand writes it the same way each time. After I practiced and practiced and practiced.
Now, it's important to mention, she never ever had one calligraphy lesson. That's nowhere. But if you look at this work, it's amazing. Just amazing. It's hard to read what the words are. On one, I guess a long time ago, I did 1 or 2 pages and I put them into English. Took a long time. But if you look at this, you say this is some kind of calligraphy that you will never see. It's fantastic. And that's another part of the project. Once that comes into, those boxes have to get something done with, because if the building burns down, they're lost. The building can be replaced, but they can't.
Right? I have to make copies.
Yeah, we'll make copies. We'll do whatever it takes. And I'm determined that this is going to happen. It's one of my, God damn it, I want to make this happen. So it'll be Xerox, it'll be copied machines, whatever it takes is going to happen. And
I wanted to say this idea of people acknowledging each other for what they have contributed to humanity is such a significant idea that I've seen it a lot with working with people who are dying. That when the person is dying, then they tell you something that if they had mentioned it 20 years ago, they would not be dying. Like the secrets that people have, the pain. And then, like each of us, like if there are things that someone does that really touch you, you have to say it. Like it's so important to vibrate the air. It's life affirming. Like because we all do things, and there is another part that is the gravity. Like last night, a woman who was at the last concert here, she just said all these beautiful things, and I said, okay, I guess I can do another one. But most of the time, no one's saying anything to anyone. But yet, people have very deep feelings about so many things. And I noticed it the most with working at the center with people dying. The incredible, poignant things that people would say, like Joe Caputo, who's worked here, who I spent many months with. And when he was in the hospital for up dying, James and I were visiting. We went there every day for 3 months. And it was raining, and we went late at night, like around 11. We'd always make sure we stopped in. And he said, "Am I dead?" He said, "Am I, because of the rain, because of the hour?" And we said, "No, you're not." But it was just like he was in that in-between place. But all these things that we all do in our lives, that you just hope that people share them more. Maybe it's about the person directly, or it's about someone else. Those impressions
are what keep life moving in an evolutionary way. And most of the time people don't really think it makes a difference if you say it out loud or not, but it really does.
This week, on a one-to-one, somebody, one of the people, mentioned a story, said something that they knew was very important to say, that I knew was very important to say. And then I thought, well, part of the effort I make is to provide a place and myself to be a witness to what people have to say. Because once something is said, it enters the world of matter. It enters into a different reality. It is now said, and somebody heard it, and it is no longer something that rattles around in your mind by itself. It's now on paper, so to speak. And that I view my workroom as in a manner of speaking, like a confession box, just to come and say something that's important to you and take it out of the world of thought and put it into the world of a witness. So
It's one of the most important, if not the most important thing that we can contribute as beings that have the gift of speech and language. That evolutionary point, is not to be forgotten. Like, it's so important to know how we moved from one place to another.
Pam mentions Joe. At the very, very last days, Joseph was dying, and we spoke about, I guess I'm going to be dead soon, yes. And we walked through his dying. Here on 12th Street, the St. Vincent's Hospital. That's what happens in the world where all the externals and the frills and they're all gone. It's just down to basics. This guy I love and I've worked with for 10 years. This is the end of the road, and I'm going to be here with him because that's what I'm supposed to do. And we did it. And to this day, on front lawn, PA, got a tree there. It's a weeping willow tree. It's about 10 feet high now. That's Joseph Caputo's tree. And whenever I pass it, hello, Joe, how are you? These are levels of realization. We realize that all the other stuff we've done, the exercises, the being there, the talk, they're preparation to enter a world of that kind of consciousness. And of course, for me lately, I have felt I've been sitting in this chair for 33 years now, and always thinking, always knowing, well, at some point the group will break up, or this person will, I guess I'll be here alone, But lately, within the associates, I've come to realize that when I leave, what I've done is going to go on. This is not going to end with me. There's a few people who are going to keep this thing going. And it changed my world completely. For which I am eternally grateful to know that this is going to go on. And Pam's writings are going to go on. And that old group, now put on this, that's going to go on. It's things like this enable me to say life is fantastic. It's incredibly beautiful. And I want to stay around to have more of it. So I look 8 ways when I cross 7th Avenue. And I thank my lucky stars that I got to cross the street. But we do. Oh,
Tea time.
tea time, yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,